The breaking point, the last ember of Olivia Reyes's dream, smoldered in the remains of what had been Sabor, her small but promising restaurant in downtown Portland. 3 years of savings, countless 16-hour days, and a lifetime of her grandmother's recipes, all reduced to charred walls and water damage. The electrical fire had started in the neighboring business, but fate didn't care about fair. Standing across the street in the November rain, Olivia pulled her threadbare jacket tighter as firefighters finished their work. Insurance should cover some of it, her sous chef Dominic said gently, standing beside her with an umbrella. Not enough, Olivia replied, her voice hollow. I was behind on the payments. The weight of it all crushed down on her shoulders. At 31, she had poured everything into Sabor. Her apartment above the restaurant was similarly damaged, deemed unsafe until repairs could be made. Her car had been sold months ago to cover payroll during a slow season. Pride had kept her from calling her brother in Arizona, who was struggling with 3 kids and a mortgage of his own. You can stay with me and Peter, Dominic offered, but Olivia could see the worry in his eyes. Their 1-bedroom apartment was already cramped. Figure something out, she said with a forced smile. I always do. But by evening, figuring it out meant a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. It's paid for with the last of her credit card's available balance. 3 days later, with no response yet from insurance and her bank account showing a balance of $47.13, Olivia sat at a bus stop in the pouring rain, a single suitcase and her knife rolled, the tools of her, beside her. The bus shelter offered minimal protection as the November storm intensified. Olivia scrolled through her phone contacts, pride crumbling with each name she passed. Her staff had their own struggles. Friends had already lent what they could. The women's shelter downtown was at capacity. She'd called twice. The digital bus tracker showed 27 minutes until the next arrival. Olivia closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. She hadn't slept properly in days, surviving on convenience store coffee and discount granola bars. A sleek charcoal gray Tesla pulled up to the curb, stopping directly in front of the shelter. Olivia barely glanced up, assuming the driver was lost or waiting for someone else. The window rolled down, revealing a man with disheveled dark hair and serious eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The buses are running behind because of flooding on Burnside, he said, his voice quiet but clear. Over the drumming rain? They've announced delays of at least an hour. Olivia nodded a thanks, returning her gaze to her phone. She didn't have anywhere particular to be anyway, just away from here. Where are you headed? The man asked. Something in his tone, not pity, but a simple, direct concern made Olivia look up again. He was perhaps in his mid-30s, with a neatly trimmed beard and an expression that seemed both tired and alert. Nowhere specific, she admitted. Just somewhere dry. He studied her for a moment, then the suitcase and professional knife case. You're a chef. Wasn't a question, but Olivia nodded anyway. Was she corrected? I'm Theo, he said. Theo Barrett. I run the Westside Community Center. We have a cafe there that needs help, and I have a guest house that's sitting empty. He paused. I'm not usually this forward, but you look like you could use a break, and we genuinely need someone with your skills. Olivia's instincts warred. Within her caution versus desperation. She had heard of the Westside Center. It was a legitimate operation that offered resources to struggling families. Still, I don't take charity, she said firmly. A faint smile touched his lips. Good, because I don't offer it. This would be a job with fair pay and temporary housing in exchange for your expertise. The cafe serves affordable meals to the community.
Yes.
Rain intensified, and a gust of wind drove water sideways into the shelter. I'm Olivia Reyes, she finally said, and I'd like to hear more about this job. Theo nodded and unlocked the doors. Then get him, Ms. Reyes. Let's get out of this storm and talk properly. Clutching her knife rolled to her chest like a shield, Olivia made her decision and stepped toward the car. Unexpected sanctuary, the Tesla glided through rain-slick streets, windshield wipers keeping rhythm with the classical music playing softly through the speakers. Olivia sat rigid in the passenger seat, her suitcase and knife roll secured in the trunk. She studied Theo from the corner of her eye, his focused profile, the way he drove with careful precision, the simple but obviously expensive watch on his wrist. The guest house is about 15 minutes from the community center, Theo explained, turning onto a tree-lined avenue that wound uphill. It's nothing fancy, but it's private and has everything you need. Olivia's skepticism must have shown on her face because he added, "This isn't as strange as it seems. We regularly provide temporary housing for staff in transition. Our last cafe manager retired to Arizona last month." "And you just happened to be driving by that bus stop?" Olivia asked. A shadow passed over Theo's face. "No, I was at Portland General visiting a friend. The bus stop was on my route home." He paused. "You don't have to take the job. I can drop you wherever you'd prefer." The sincerity in his voice quieted some of Olivia's doubts. Still, she clutched her phone, ready to text Dominic their location if needed. They turned into a driveway bordered by tall evergreens, revealing a modern craftsman style home nestled against the hillside. Rather than pulling up to the main house, Theo continued along a paved path that curved around to a smaller structure, a charming cottage with warm light glowing from within. "The property belonged to my parents," Theo said as he parked. "Mother was a social worker. The guest house was originally built for families in crisis who needed immediate shelter." Inside, Olivia found herself in a space that was both welcoming and impersonal, like an upscale vacation rental. The main room combined living and dining areas with a small but well-equipped kitchen. A hallway presumably led to a bedroom and bathroom. "There's food in the fridge," Theo said, remaining by the door. "Clean linens in the closet. Wi-Fi password is on the counter." The job at the center pays $28 an hour to start, with health benefits after 90 days. "If you're interested, you can start Monday. If not, you're welcome to stay here for a week while you figure out your next steps." Olivia set her knife roll on the counter, running her fingers over the worn leather case. "Why are you doing this?" Theo considered her question. "'Cause 10 years ago, I was living in my car after a failed business venture. Someone offered me a chance when I needed it most." He reached into his jacket, retrieving a business card. "My number's on there. The community center address too. There's no obligation, Olivia." As he turned to leave, Olivia called after him. "What kind of food does the cafe serve?" Theo paused in the doorway. "Simple, nutritious meals. Soups, sandwiches, salads. Many of our clients have limited access to balanced nutrition. We try to provide that in a dignified setting." After he left, Olivia explored the cottage. The refrigerator contained basic eggs, milk, bread, vegetables, and a container of homemade soup with a note made Thursday. "Needs salt." In the bedroom, she found a queen bed with crisp sheets and a view of the forested hillside. The bathroom held fluffy towels and new toiletries. It was all so normal, and that's what finally allowed Olivia to exhale. She showered for the first time in days, letting hot water wash away the grime of desperation, wrapped in a borrowed robe. She heated the soup-a-decent vegetable minestrone that indeed needed salt and ate, sitting cross-legged on the couch. Scrolling through information about the Westside Community Center on her phone, the center was well established, offering everything from after-school programs to job training. Reviews praised its welcoming atmosphere and practical approach. The cafe, called Common Ground, served both paying customers and those in need. Several articles mentioned Theodore Barrett as the founder, describing him as publicity-shy and hands-on. One photo showed him at a fundraiser looking uncomfortable in a suit, standing slightly apart from the crowd. There was more to the story, Olivia sensed. A wealthy man who drove himself to hospital visits. A successful entrepreneur who worked directly at a community center. A property owner who lived alone in a house meant for a family. Curiosity, as much as necessity, led Olivia to text the number on the card the next morning. "I'd like to see the cafe," Theo responded promptly. 11 o'clock work for you? I'll pick you up." The community center occupied a renovated warehouse in a transitional neighborhood area, where gentrification butted against generational poverty. The building's exterior was brightened by murals depicting diverse hands joined together, while the interior hummed with activity. People of all ages moved purposefully through the space. Teenagers in a computer lab, elderly folks in what looked like a crafting circle, young mothers with children in a play area. The cafe occupied the front corner, sunlight streaming through large windows. It was simple but welcoming, with mismatched wooden tables and chairs, potted plants, and local artwork on the walls. A counter separated the dining area from an open kitchen, where two people worked efficiently. "We serve breakfast and lunch 6 days a week," Theo explained as they toured the space. "Anyone can eat here. Those who can pay do, and that subsidizes. Meals for those who can't. No questions asked. No special line for free meals." Olivia examined the kitchen, small but well-designed, with quality equipment and good workflow. The menu posted on the wall was indeed simple: soups, sandwiches, salads, and a daily hot special. "Who plans the menu?" she asked, persistent. "Manager Jenny," Theo said, introducing a woman with short gray hair who approached them. "She's fantastic with the budget, but admits she's not a trained chef." "We do our best," Jenny said warmly, "but we could do so much more with someone who has real skills." As they continued the tour, Olivia observed how Theo interacted with everyone, not as a wealthy benefactor, but as a colleague. Staff and clients alike greeted him with genuine respect rather than deference. Later, over coffee in his modest office, more functional than impressive, Theo outlined the job in detail. The hours were reasonable, the pay fair, the expectations clear. "Why did your restaurant close?" he asked directly. Olivia flinched but answered honestly, explaining about the fire. "And the insurance issues?" Theo nodded. "Bad luck, not bad management. That matters." He studied her for a moment. "The guest house is yours for as long as you work here. No rent required. It's part of the compensation package. You'd have weekends free to pursue other opportunities, if you wish." It was the perfect lifeline, a chance to rebuild while doing meaningful work. Yet Olivia hesitated, her pride still stinging from how quickly her life had unraveled. "I'll need to see everything in writing," she said firmly. Theo smiled for the first time, a genuine expression that transformed his serious face. "I'd be concerned if you didn't." He slid a folder across the desk. "Employment contract, job description, center policies. Take the weekend to review them." As they walked back to his car, Olivia made her decision. "I'll start Monday," she said. "But the arrangement is temporary. 3 months. By then, I'll have my own place." Theo nodded, respecting her terms. "Welcome aboard, Chef Reyes." Driving back to the guest house, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in weeks, the weight on her shoulders shifting. Not disappearing, but becoming bearable. Not because someone had rescued her, but because she had found a path forward on her own terms. The foundation Monday morning arrived with a crystalline clarity that seemed to mirror Olivia's newfound purpose. She arrived at Common Ground Cafe 30 minutes before her official start time. Hair pulled back in a practical bun, wearing black chef pants and a crisp white button-down. Professional attire salvaged from her suitcase. The kitchen was already humming with activity. Jenny and a young man named Raphael were prepping for breakfast service, their movements displaying the comfortable rhythm of a long-established routine. "Chef Reyes." Jenny's face brightened. "You're early. We usually don't see new hires before the crack of 9. "Just Olivia," she corrected gently, hanging her jacket on a hook by the door. "And I wanted to get a feel for the morning flow before jumping in." Raphael, barely 20 with intricate tattoos peeking from beneath his rolled sleeves, slid a cutting. "Bored her way. In that case, these onions won't dice themselves." Olivia appreciated the lack of ceremony. She tied on an apron and got to work, observing as Jenny explained their system. The cafe served simple breakfast items: oatmeal, fruit, toast, and eggs, from 7 to 10. Then transitioned to lunch until 3. They prepared approximately 150 meals daily, with Fridays and end-of-month days being busiest when people's resources often ran lowest. "Today's lunch special is vegetable soup and grilled cheese," Jenny said, gesturing to a whiteboard menu. "We try to stretch the budget with vegetarian options twice a week." Olivia nodded, mentally cataloging ingredients and possibilities. "What's your food supplier situation?" "Cisco for basics," Jenny replied. We get bread donations from Hillside Bakery, and sometimes produce from the farmer's market if there's surplus. As the morning progressed, Olivia worked alongside the small team, helping with breakfast service while asking questions and making mental notes. The cafe operated efficiently, but she could already see opportunities for improvement, ways to enhance flavors without increasing costs. Streamline preparations and add variety to the menu. Around 10, as they transitioned to lunch prep, Theo appeared in the kitchen. He wore jeans and a simple gray sweater, looking more like a volunteer than the center's founder. "How's it going?" he asked, rolling up his sleeves and washing his hands at the sink. "You work in the cafe too?" Olivia asked, surprised. "Mondays and Wednesdays," he replied, taking over salad prep from Raphael. "Everyone on staff contributes directly to programs. It keeps us connected to why we're here." Throughout the lunch service, Olivia observed the cafe's clientele, mix of neighborhood workers paying full price, elderly residents using discount cards, and individuals who simply received their meals with a nod from Jenny. No questions. No separate lines. No difference in how anyone was treated. Dignity was served alongside every plate. By closing time, Olivia's feet ached pleasantly from standing. All day a familiar sensation she'd missed. She wiped down counters. Theo approached with a proposal. "We have a weekly staff meeting tomorrow at 9, he said. "I'd like you to share your thoughts on the cafe. Fresh eyes often see things we've missed." "I've only been here one day," Olivia protested. "And you've already reorganized the spice shelf and adjusted the soup recipe," he noted with a hint of amusement. "Jenny says it's the best it's ever tasted." Olivia hadn't realized her small changes had been so noticeable. "I just added a bay leaf and some lemon zest." "That's exactly why we need you," Theo said simply. Over the following weeks, Olivia found herself fully immersed in the community center's ecosystem. She introduced gradual changes to the cafe, creating a rotating menu that incorporated seasonal produce, implementing batch cooking methods that improved efficiency, and starting a small herb garden in the alley behind the kitchen. The staff meeting had been intimidating at first. 15 dedicated individuals from different programs, sharing updates and challenges. Olivia had spoken briefly about her ideas for the cafe, expecting polite indifference. Instead, she received enthusiastic support and practical suggestions about client preferences and dietary needs. December arrived, bringing holiday preparations and increased demand at the center. Olivia proposed a special dinner service for Christmas week, complete with festive decorations and traditional dishes made accessible for various cultural backgrounds. "We've never done a dinner service," Jenny said during planning. "Would mean extended hours, additional volunteers." "I'll handle the logistics," Olivia assured her. "My restaurant used to host community dinners during holidays. I still have contacts who might donate supplies." The proposal was approved, and Olivia threw herself into organizing the event. She reconnected with former vendors who remembered her from Sabor, many offering discounts or donations despite her changed circumstances. Working late one evening on the menu plan, she was startled when Theo appeared with 2 cups of tea. "You should have gone home hours ago," he said, placing one mug beside her paperwork. "Says the man who's also still here," Olivia countered, accepting the tea gratefully. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the center quiet after hours. "Why did you really start this place?" Olivia finally asked the question that had lingered since they met. Theo gazed into his mug before answering. "My sister Nora struggled with addiction for years. Brilliant person, more talented than I ever was, but she couldn't access the right help at the right time." His voice remained steady, but Olivia sensed the depth of feeling beneath his words. "She died of an overdose 9 years ago. I'd already sold my first software company, and suddenly had resources but no direction. This center became that direction." "I'm sorry about your sister," Olivia said softly. "The point isn't to wallow in what happened," Theo continued. "It's to create something that might have made a difference, not just for Nora, but for anyone who needs a foundation to build from." He looked at her directly, like a chef who lost her restaurant to circumstances beyond her control. "Not a charity case," Olivia reminded him, her pride flaring. "No," Theo agreed. You're a colleague who's already improving our operation. The Christmas dinner plan is brilliant, exactly what our community needs. As they continued discussing logistics, Olivia realized how comfortable their working relationship had become. Theo respected her expertise, never micromanaging despite his position. In turn, she appreciated his practical approach to helping others, not through grand gestures, but through sustainable support that preserved dignity. The Christmas dinner proved even more successful than anticipated. Over 200 people attended across 3 seatings, enjoying a meal that balanced festivity with nutrition. Volunteers from local businesses served alongside center staff, including Theo, who spent the evening refilling water glasses and clearing tables without fanfare. At the end of the night, the last guests departed with containers of leftovers and handwritten cards from local schoolchildren. Olivia found herself standing in the kitchen doorway, watching the community she'd become part of. Dominic had come to help, bringing Peter and other former Sabor staff. Janice's family had volunteered. Together, 3 generations working side by side. Even some regular cafe clients had returned as helpers. You created this, Theo said quietly, appearing beside her. We all did, Olivia corrected, suddenly aware of how far she'd come from that rainy bus stop. The guest house had begun to feel like home, the center, like a purpose rather than just employment. As if reading her thoughts, Theo added, Your 3-month deadline is approaching. Do you still plan to leave? The question caught Olivia off guard. She had been so focused on the present that she'd almost forgotten her self-imposed timeline. Her insurance claim had finally been processed, providing enough funds to potentially restart elsewhere. Yet the thought of leaving stirred an unexpected reluctance. I'm still figuring that out, she admitted. Theo nodded, respecting her uncertainty. Whatever you decide, what you've built here will remain. He glanced around the cafe, then back at her with genuine appreciation. Thank you for getting in my car that day. In that moment, watching snow begin to fall outside the windows, Olivia realized that what had started as temporary shelter had somehow become a foundation for something neither of them had anticipated. Rising from ashes, January brought clarity to Olivia's future in the form of an unexpected opportunity. A small storefront 3 blocks from the community center had become available for Lisa, former coffee shop with basic kitchen infrastructure. Still intact, insurance settlement from Sabor, while modest, could cover initial costs if she approached the venture conservatively. I want to open a cafe, she announced to Theo during their weekly planning meeting. Not a fine dining restaurant like before, something accessible that serves the neighborhood while supporting the center's mission. She expected resistance, or at least practical concerns. Instead, Theo studied the business plan she'd prepared with thoughtful consideration. You've thought this through, he observed. Your projected numbers look reasonable. I'd keep working here part-time, Olivia continued. The new place would complement Common Ground, not compete with it. Theo set down the papers. What will? You call it races, she replied. It means roots in Spanish, because that's what I'm putting down here. 4 months later, Races opened, its doors awarm, inviting space, offering affordable meals with the culinary flair that had distinguished Sabor. But at price points accessible to the diverse neighborhood, Olivia had designed a business model that included a training program for center clients interested in culinary careers, with Raphael as her first apprentice. As Races flourished, something unexpected developed between Olivia and Theo. Their professional respect had gradually evolved into friendship, then into something deeper neither had anticipated. They moved cautiously, both carrying past wounds. Olivia from relationships where her ambitions had been secondary. Theo from years of isolation following his sister's death. I don't need saving, Olivia told him one evening as they walked through the neighborhood after closing both their establishments. I never thought you did, Theo replied. You're the strongest person I know. 1 year after their chance encounter at the bus stop, both had transformed. Olivia had rebuilt her professional life on her own terms, creating something sustainable and meaningful. Theo had emerged from the shadow of loss, finding personal connection beyond his work. The guest house stood empty. Now Olivia had moved into a small apartment above Races. Yet neither could deny that their separate journeys had become increasingly intertwined. creating a foundation strong enough to weather whatever challenges came next. Full circle November, rain pelted Portland once again, almost exactly 1 year since Olivia had stood at that bus stop with nowhere to go. Today she locked races after a successful dinner service, the cafe now established as a neighborhood fixture. Her phone buzzed with a text from Theo. "Meet me at the corner of Madison and 5th. Curious." Olivia made her way through the downpour to find Theo's Tesla waiting at the exact bus stop where they'd first met. He stood beside it, getting soaked despite an umbrella, a nervous smile on his face. "What are you doing?" she called over the rain. "Being sentimental," he replied, gesturing to the empty bus shelter. "1 year ago, right here." Olivia shook her head, laughing. "We've both come a long way since then." "That's why I wanted to meet here," Theo said, suddenly serious. "To remind us both where our paths crossed and how much has changed." He took her hand. "You rebuilt your life on your own terms. You never needed me to rescue you. And you remembered how to connect with people again," Olivia added softly. "The center was your purpose, but you were hiding inside it." The rain intensified around them, but neither moved toward shelter. "I have something to ask you," Theo said, and this ridiculous location seemed appropriate. He reached into his pocket, producing a small box. "Will you marry me, Olivia? Not because either of us needs the other, but because we're better together." Then apart. Olivia's breath caught. Their relationship had deepened gradually over months of working side by side, building something meaningful together. They had deliberately taken things slowly, each valuing their hard-won independence. "Yes," she said finally, rain mingling with tears on her face, "but on one condition." "Name it," Theo replied immediately. "We combine our foundations," she said. "Races in the center become officially connected not just through us, but structurally. What we've built separately becomes something stronger together." Theo's face broke into a genuine smile, no longer the rare sight it had been when they first met. "That's exactly what I was hoping you'd say." As they embraced in the rain, a city bus pulled up to the stop. The driver, witnessing their moment, gave a congratulatory honk before continuing on his route. Olivia laughed against Theo's shoulder. "Now can we please get out of this rain?" Theo opened the car door with a dramatic flourish. "Your chariot awaits, Chef Reyes." "You know," Olivia said as they slid into the dry warmth of the Tesla, "most love stories don't start with you look like you need a ride. Most love stories aren't about two people rebuilding themselves while finding each other," Theo countered. Taking her hand across the console as they drove away from the bus stop, Olivia reflected on the year's journey from desperation to determination, from survival to thriving. What had begun as a temporary sanctuary had become the foundation for something neither of them had been looking for, but both had ultimately needed. Not rescue, but partnership. Not escape, but a place to truly belong.